here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our season recaps of leading up to the premiere date of Game of Thrones Season 8. This is Season 3. And Christian, just like the creators or the people who've written and wrote this show, Benioff and Weiss, they've said in interviews that if they can just get to the Red Wedding, they can really last a huge impacting punch to not only the people who watched it, but who knew that the Red Wedding itself would become one of the most iconic TV moments in recent years and maybe arguably of all time. I want to introduce myself. I am DJ Miles. I am here with my co-pilot, Christian Torres. How are you doing, sir? And special guest, Chris Herman from Sammy Ain't Seen Shit.
Hello, everyone.
How are you doing? Thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you.
I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on Season 3 of Game of Thrones. So with all that, people, out of the way, let's go ahead and jump into Season 3 of Game of Thrones. And from the events of Season 2 ending with Samwell Tarly running from the Wild Walkers and all that stuff, we are beyond the wall. And now, for the first time ever, Christian, we do see Jon finally meeting Mance Rayder and Tormund over here. So that's the introduction. Those characters, how do you feel like they handled those characters right off the bat from meeting the king beyond the wall?
Well, I really liked it, and the reason is because they do a good job in Season 2 of really setting up who Mance is. You know this backstory that he was once a crow, and for whatever reason he defected, and he's been beyond the wall, and he's this great unifier. You know what I mean? I love this character. I mean, this is one of my favorite things is each season you get another addition to one of these characters that you're going to end up loving. And he's certainly no exception.
I think they just kind of reinforce just Jon's journey of just trying to figure out who he is, because he has a bit of an identity crisis in Season 3, figuring out that, you know, he's staying true to the men of the Night's Watch, but he has to do a good enough job to be this undercover agent here, right? And although he's doing that at first with the noble intentions of protecting his homies, right? He realizes not only are the wildlings, good people, although there are some crazy people out there, they're actually just trying to get away from the White Walkers themselves. So, Chris, next up, we jump into King's Landing, and after King's Landing, we see everything happening after the Battle of Blackwater Bay.
Sure.
You know, we see Tyrion all bandaged up, and we see Tywin now confronting Tyrion, and when he meets him, Tyrion wants to know, why haven't you seen me? I've been battled and wounded, and of course, Tywin is like, well, listen, you're alive. You're fine. You're a Lannister. You don't need rewards, because Tyrion wants to get the hell out. He wants to go to Casterly Rock. So now we see,
and he thinks he's earned it too. That's the other thing, which I think this is a really revealing scene, because he's like, look, I served his hand and I saved the kingdom. Like, the odds were stacked against us, and I fucking handled business. All I want in return is, what I think is my birthright. Jaime can't take lands. He can't take heirs, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just a really fucking heartbreaking scene. Herman, I didn't mean to step over you, but I will say that it's a heartbreaking scene because it shows that nothing will ever be enough for Tywin Lannister when it comes to that relationship with Tyrion.
We have already seen that, Tyrion and Tywin dislike each other. But I think this is the first time where we really see just how cruel Tywin can be to his son. The fact that you're just a little lecherous little stump, and I will be consumed by maggots before I give you, Casterly Rock. It's like, God damn, you just see. And for that moment, Tyrion, who always talks, says nothing after that statement the entire time. He just looks at his father, because he's at the end of the day, even though he resents his father so much, he's still craving for that affection. That's Tyrion's flaw. He wants to be loved, by the people, by his family, by the woman he loves, the woman he loves, exactly. And it's just that moment he's just like, fuck, and he just walks away. And when Tywin says one last thing, and he just like, he doesn't say anything back. No, I think it's a great scene. It's probably my favorite scene in the entire episode.
We find out, of course, Davos is alive. Stannis is licking his wounds. Of course, we end up finding out that Melisandre is still spewing that crazy poison. But I think what's so interesting, the point with Stannis real quickly, is that as much of a hard ass he is, you also have to realize that no one really, like, they respected him as this military, general and all that stuff. But in terms of like love and respect, they don't get it. Or he doesn't receive it from anyone else.
Sure.
All the way to the east, we see Dany going all the way up to Astapor, trying to get the Unsullied, and is gonna wager one of the dragons, and we'll see what happens with that in later episodes. So that's the end of episode 1, and let's go ahead and jump into episode 2. It's called Dark Wings, Dark Words. So we see Bran finally meeting Jojen for the first time, and Jojen right here is trying to figure out, or he tells Bran that you, my friend, have a very important mission, and I am here to help. We see Robb here too, where although he was high and mighty at the end of season 2, after he married Talisa here, Chris Herman, we now see that, wait a minute, he's taking detours to go visit, one of his, relatives in the Tullys. His grandfather. He passed away, and because now he lost the support of the Freys because of his marriage, now he's taking a detour from the war itself. Which, hold on, Rob, what are we doing here? But it's not that bad. It's not that bad so far.
Not yet.
And how do you feel about that so far with Mr. Robb Stark slowly making mistakes in season 3?
I really like Robb Stark. I think he's a great character, and Richard Mann does a great job. But that character leads with his heart and leads with his dick, and he doesn't leave his head, and that's going to get him in trouble. But no, this kind of lays the groundwork for what will eventually happen. That there is dissent in the ranks, and is talking to one of his bannermen, Lord Karstark.
Yeah,
and you see that just like there, that resentment's building. But it's such a well acted scene. But he points out what we are seeing as the audience. Karstark, he's the audience character in this moment. It's like, you lost this war as soon as you married that woman, and she's hot, extremely hot. I love that character. I mean, and they're fucking season 2.
Oh yeah.
Woo! That booty butt?
I was gonna say no. I'm pretty sure it was in season 3. Yeah, there's one point where like Robb is like planning, and he just like, listen, I can't think when I see that ass right there. Okay,
much.
Put on some clothes. So anyway. As the episode continues, Christian, we go into King's Landing and we meet one of my favorite characters in this season, and that is Olenna Tyrell. And we see so many fascinating things with her, and we will talk a lot about her because I have a lot of clips pertaining to her. We see how she's smart, how she's witty. She speaks what's on her mind, Christian, and you know what? She is not dumb. She is a veteran, and she knows how to play the Game of Thrones well. So with the introduction of Olenna Tyrell, how do you feel about just seeing her as a character in the show?
We're getting a late addition, but a worthy adversary. And it's so amazing that 3 seasons into the show, they're still able. I mean, granted, this is source material, so let's give credit where credit's due. Martin, for all the shit we give you about not writing books, you created a fucking great world. Take your time, make it good. But yeah, she's a really wonderful character who's very capable. And again, we kind of skirt through this issue of like how women are treated in this world, in this universe, right? Certainly some of them are subjugated and then they're not treated very well, but there's opportunity for all of these people to at least have a seat at the table. And I think maybe no more than her. Like, I think like there's the analog is kind of like Cersei. Like if Cersei wasn't crazy and vengeful and evil, she could be this person who is someone who is very smart and is able to parlay a lot of her wealth and status as a family into playing that game well. And you see it right away. I mean, when she gets there and we kind of glossed over this, but the new implication is that Marjorie Tyrell and Joffrey are going to be married.
Yeah, they're going to get married. Yep.
Because of this, she has this conversation with Sansa where she's like, tell it true. Like, is he okay? Like talking about Joffrey. And again, it's just like getting all this information, always being self-reliant and always trying to be one step ahead of the enemy. And I just think she's such a wonderful addition to the show, man.
Jon Snow meets a warg for the first time. So now again, Christian, although we slowly got the introduction of magic and mysticism in this world, now we're seeing a lot more of it happening. And what a warg is and what it does, they can not communicate with animals. They can become the animals themselves.
Put their minds into animals.
Yeah, they can put their minds into animals and all that stuff. Yeah, so we do see the episode end with Jaime and Brienne of Tarth get captured from the Boltons.
If season 2 is the season of Tyrion, season 3 is the year where I finally fucking care about Jaime as a character. And you talk about just how wonderfully written his entire arc for the season is.
Episode 3, we jump into Walk of Punishment, and one of the earlier scenes we see here is Tywin's dominance and how people are reacting to all that. I love this scene. This was one of my favorite scenes where they're trying to figure out, hey, who has more dibs, and the closer I sit next to Tywin, it's going to show my support for the character and all that stuff. And then we see later on in this how Cersei herself pulls up a seat next to Tywin, and then, of course, Tyrion, being the smartass that he is, taking his sweet time, being in direct opposition of his father, something I quickly want to note with all the King's Landing stuff happening within season 3. Back at the Tullys, we see Talisa healing up the Lannisters and all that stuff, and of course they are now prisoners because this is the only thing they have as a bargaining chip that the North has over the Lannisters, which... Again, we're seeing Robb stumble here. I don't know how much bargaining chip that's going to have because they let go, because Jaime's now running out and about with Brienne of Tarth. One of the most important moments that happens, and I'm just going to skim through episode 3. Christian, I'll let you interject as soon as I'm done here, is this very powerful moment where, listen, Jaime, you think you got it all? That daddy's going to save you? Well, he's not going to save you from this. And I remember at the end of this episode, even when the moment happened, they ended up playing this jubilant rock song where you're like, Jaime's hand is gone. And because it just came out of nowhere, I think the song fit really appropriate with how it ended because it was just so sporadic. Christian, how did you feel about that moment when we see now Jaime losing what was so precious to him and what made him the formidable opponent to everyone in Westeros?
Right. So listen, there's a lot of things I love about this arc, as I already geeked out about. But one thing I really like is the visual language, right? For one, Jaime is super, super blonde in early seasons, and now he's a little dirty, and he's morally kind of coming to this center, if not all the way to the good side throughout this season. And his hair is darker. It's brown, right? You're seeing this transformation. I think in a way, him getting his, dominant hand cut off is this really big moment because it severs that life forever for him. And it accelerates his kind of, I don't want to say descent, I guess ascent, right? He's ascending into a good moral place. And I really love this. And again, shocking scene because we figured he's got some plot armor, right? He's a Lannister. He's too important to the story. And they quickly kind of dispel with that. And what I think is fucking metal is isn't he forced to wear that shit around his neck for the rest of the episode?
Yeah, and that's how the beginning of episode 4 starts. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, geez, I didn't mean to cut you or to jump the gun there. It's just for me, it's so goddamn degrading and debasing, and it really he has to lose everything before he can kind of rebuild. As cliche as that sounds, but this is a really big turning point in that scene. Not my favorite Jaime scene. We're getting there, but this is a really pivotal one, and I wanted to bring it up for a second.
Episode 4, and now his watch is ended. So, Chris, I wanted to talk to you about Poro Jiro Mormont here getting the can in this episode. And we haven't talked about a lot of the Men's of the Night's Watch in this review so far, but we've seen there's a lot of civil strife happening amongst the group.
Sure.
A lot of them have died from the White Walker attack. We got that immediately from one of the earlier episodes within season 3.
Yeah.
That
episode 1. Yeah.
Or episode 1, yeah. And now Mormont is figuring out what the hell is he doing. And of course, Craster just not a good man. And of course, we see, some of the lackeys within the Men's of the Night's Watch over here, in particular, this guy on the right-hand side, I don't know his name. He's the one that ends up stabbing him. And how crazy was this moment when you saw it happening?
It's interesting because there's so many deaths in this season, but this is the one I think people often forget about with J.R. Mormont. And then, comes back later on in future seasons with his son. No, this is a great moment because, we're led to believe J.R. Mormont, he's so well respected in the Night's Watch. He's one of their most premier commanders ever.
Yeah.
In the history of it. And
Yeah.
John respects him. All these other people respect him. People look to him to leadership all the time. The fact that his followers, not all of them, clearly, because Sam, he just I respect you. He just took off.
Yeah, he just
I can't
ran,
do
yeah.
anything. I'm going to die too. But no, to see him die in such a horrific way, and to see what happens to his body later on, it's just it's pretty damn tragic. But he goes out fighting though. They stab him a whole bunch. He's still trying. He's still killing people. No, it's a sad scene, but still, it's a good fight scene too. And I'm fucking just glad Crasher got it. Fuck that guy. He's such a piece of shit. Great actor, but man, what a despicable character.
I just want to say very quickly, I think one of the things to add there too is just the loss of another moral, honorable man. Like Ned Stark learned the lesson, season 1, being honorable doesn't really get you places, not in a dishonorable world. And so it may seem insignificant, but Lord Mormont being taken out like that, we've lost one of the good ones, so to speak. And you kind of see the moral decline of the Night's Watch. Although I just want to point out quickly again, the Night's Watch isn't like a bunch of altruistic monks. I mean, a lot of them are fucking criminals and people who've been banished to the wall. So the minute they get a speed bump in the road or they're worried about starving or freezing to death, they just immediately turn on the vows that they made. So it shouldn't be as surprising, but still, I remember watching that scene for the first time and being really, really affected by it. So yeah. Crazy awesome scene.
We go all the way to the east, and let's go ahead and back to Astapor, where now we see Dany finally getting an army. But we end up finding out, Christian, that she's actually playing the game a little bit smart, and she knew what she was doing by giving up the dragon, only to get him back. And we see the early sayings that a lot of people end up loving in this Game of Thrones universe. Daenerys, right? Which I'm totally butchering, but it was one of the things that we see the episode end with, and something really cool here. We see Dany, she has the Dothraki, but now she has 8,000 Unsullied, which is a really formidable army here, because we even saw in earlier episodes where they're obedient, they're loyal. Hey, this guy's going to have his nipple torn out, but hey, he's still loyal to the cause. So how scary is Dany so far?
Dany's story is so removed from everyone else's that I think it has to be elongated in a lot of ways. Like season 2, it's just the Karth season, basically, right? And if nothing else, she's kind of learning how to manipulate her way through the game. This season felt like Martin needed something to keep her from getting to Westeros really quickly. Not in a bad way, but she gets like a lust for being the breaker of chains or whatever. Like she wants to free all the slaves, and that kind of becomes her driving force of a mission here. It is still good to see her kind of be ruthless, but at the end of that scene, she has 8,000 really well-trained troops, but that's not enough to take the throne, and she kind of knows that. So I think her mindset becomes about like, let's free everyone, let's become the most beloved leader, and then from there we can amass our fortunes and we can then take what's rightfully ours. I think it's a good arc. It's certainly a better arc than what she had in season 2, and it's good to see her growing as a character.
We got to go back to one of the coolest moments in season 3, episode 5, Kissed by Fire. We see the Brotherhood without banner, and we have Beric Dondarrion himself facing off against the Hound. As we've seen in the previous season, the Hound is scared of fire thanks to his brother and the mountain. And we see this fight, and I think it's one of the coolest scenes we get all throughout season 3, Chris, because there's a lot of cool things here too. But we end up finding out more that this religion that Melisandre is spewing, from our perspective up until this point, it was just kind of crazy stuff happening. But now we see the Lord of Light igniting that sword, and not only that, when we see the Hound not only defeat Beric Dondarrion, but ends up killing him, only seconds to see him become revived. Everyone, even myself included, is like, whoa, so this Lord of Light character is not crazy, and Melisandre's not full of shit.
To be fair, very quickly, you did see a shadow demon get born last season. So it's not like there wasn't confirmation of the Lord of Light already, but it's good to see that, like, because I believe Melisandre is even surprised at how many times he's been brought back. You know what I mean? So it's good that even the people who are following the religion don't necessarily know the true scope of it. But it's like I said, I think it's a really cool thing that we live in a world where we've seen the miracles happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like there isn't a debate, does God exist? Like, I mean, I assume so. He just brought this fucker back from the dead.
I do like how they kind of go into after he's resurrected, where you don't come back whole. Something's always lost each time. So it's like, okay, so there's a cost to this type of magic that's being used, or this religion, or whatever you want to call it.
We keep on seeing Robb Stark messing up, and now this is really something that we're becoming scared about as an audience member, but still a little optimistic. But now, because of Lord Karstark assassinating those Lannister cousins.
Tommen, not Tommen?
Yeah, Tommen and not Tommen. Yeah, which I wrote down an Easter egg. We had Tommen in here earlier that people, seem to forget. So a little Easter egg with that. But Karstark is now beheaded. Robb Stark is like, why did you do this? And of course, Talisa and Robb's mother saying, listen, if you do this, we're going to lose these guys.
You'll lose half your men.
Yeah,
basically.
You're going to lose half your men. I don't know if this is a good idea. Robb ends up doing it, and then we even see as he assassinates Lord Karstark and beheads him that he's shaking furiously.
Yeah.
And I think they play this dramatic music, Christian, where it becomes really dire of like, I don't know what Robb's doing. This is the guy we were rooting for after Ned Stark, and we understand even from a story narrative that, hey, maybe sometimes the good guys have to die, right? Kind of like a Lion King situation where the sun is now going to triumph. And now this is really one of those first examples, rewatching it again, where you become really scared for Robb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we know
again, in the first episode, we have this whole scene where Ned has to behead someone who deserted from the Night's Watch, right? In the first episode of season 1. And so, Robb is trying to walk this line about being his own man, but also staying true to the honor-bound things that his father taught him to do.
a lot of the stuff that happens to Robb's army is his own fault. The fact that he married the wrong person he shouldn't have married. The fact that he killed the lord of one of the houses that follows him, and those troops are just gone.
Yeah.
It's like he does a lot of this stuff to himself, making even though he's won every battle.
Yeah.
He's like he keeps hurting himself.
Yeah.
So it's cool.
And we haven't talked about Roose Bolton yet, but we've seen him at this point now that he's already released Jaime.
Yeah.
He sent him out to King's Landing. He's like, yeah, I don't know what Robb's doing. I'm just going to let you go. And listen, what happened with your hand? That wasn't me. That was one of my men. And I'm already telling your father tell your father it was my lackey's fault. And it had nothing to do with me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, Chris, we also see more examples too of Jaime redeeming himself, and we end up finding out in the tub, the hot tub moment here that he has with Brienne about the real reason why he got the name the Kingslayer, and how people really reacted to that when truth be known, he did it for the realm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think this is the first moment for me where I actually liked him as a character. Like, I still think, like, the actor, he did just a great job. Even when he gets his hand cut off, I was like, good, I'm glad you did. But those are the moment we saw him as human. That he opened up to Brienne, his the person who was his captor or whatever. And I like the moment when he opens up and is like, look, I did this to protect however many people were in that city. And I got shit for it for the rest of my life.
We see the introduction of Stannis' wife and his beautiful and sweet daughter, Shireen here. And we see how crazy the wife is, saying like, hey, thanks to Melisandre, like, you can now be a real king. And, she can actually give you a son and all that stuff. We also see back in King's Landing that Loras ends up spilling the beans when he has sex with that one dude about like, oh yeah, I'm going to marry Sansa, which now Littlefinger ends up telling Tywin, and episode 5 ends with Tywin telling both Cersei and Tyrion, listen, I dominate the both of you, and you will marry who I tell you to marry, which was one of the biggest twists that we've seen, because we're like, oh shit, Tyrion. And again, we see a lot of themes happening in season 3 of like marriage and keeping vows and promises and all that stuff, and the importance of family. Tyrion now has to marry Sansa. Cersei now has to marry Loras. Yeah. So that was the end of episode 5. Episode 6, we go into The Climb. The episode starts with everyone here in Riverrun that Thoros of Myr meets Melisandre. Melisandre surprised just as much as we are, the audience, that, hey, you got this ability to keep on reviving people. How is this a thing? Yeah. Because you're just a drunk guy, and I'm trying to do what's right for everyone here. So we get examples of that. And then we also see here Olenna becoming just as smart and witty with Tywin. I actually have a clip right here, and she was saying, listen, I don't want this marriage to happen between, my son with Cersei and all that stuff. So we see a battle of wits happening here. But Olenna's also smart to know when to end it, because she has to play her cards correctly. Again, because she's so experienced.
You men may have a stomach for bloodshed and slaughter, but this is another matter entirely. Did you grow up with boy cousins, Lord Tywin?
Of course.
And you never...
No.
All right, well, we can just stop it right there.
Why you pausing, man? This is two political titans going at each other and trying to outsmart one another the entire time. I mean, Diana Riggs, ex-Bond girl, former Bond girl, and so she has that, just all the smarminess you're getting from her, and the sass, and Tywin is just kind of deflecting the entire time. I wish I could have gotten more scenes with them, like just like this, because they respect each other too. Like, Tywin doesn't have a lot of respect for a lot of people. Honestly, I can't really think of one person he does respect. I mean, maybe Arya in season 2.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
this is the first time where you see it's like, okay, yeah, you're my rival, and I kind of like you, but we still got to go at it like this. So no, it's a perfect scene. It encapsulates just how powerful they are.
This show is absolutely at its best when it's just people in a room talking. Give me a whole episode of that. Give me a spin-off show with Tywin and her just going to like the market or something, and I would watch it. That's how good it is.
Roose Bolton finally gives Jaime back to King's Landing. We see it in episode 6. And then one of the best scenes we have, I'm just going to quickly play it and I'm going to talk over it too, is that fantastic speech with Varys versus Littlefinger about chaos is a ladder. And man, just to echo what you were just saying 2 seconds ago, Christian, that these are the best moments of Game of Thrones. It's these heavy dialogue scenes amongst the smartest characters who knows how to play the Game of Thrones really well.
Chaos is a ladder. Many who try to climb it fail and never get to try again. The climb is all there is.
Oh, man, what a very powerful scene. And, of course, the episode ends with Jon Snow and Ygritte climbing to the top of the wall, having a little happily ever after. I know we haven't spoken to them that much at length in this review so far. But you know, again, we see just Jon having this identity crisis of, like, I know what I'm doing. And we even see towards the end of, the end of this season where he tells Ygritte, you're not going to win. You guys are not going to win. You guys have no strategy on how you go into battle. Maybe in a big open field, you might have the advantage, but you don't have the armor. You guys don't have the amount of horses. Yeah, you lack all that stuff. So just wanted to quickly say that. Going back to King's Landing, we see another amazing scene of Tywin just overpowering Joffrey. And I didn't realize until I saw it now, because I've seen season 3 so many times. The whole time you see this back and forth, Christian, between Tywin and Joffrey. Tywin actually literally dominates Joffrey from every perspective that he's in. So I just want to say to the cinematographers, fantastic job, because I don't know why it took me this long to see that moment play out. And Christian, I'll let you kind of take it over from here while I play the scene in the background. But I thought this was just one of the best moments, again, that shows Tywin's dominance in this season.
I'm very, very proud of you, man, because this is one of those details that ordinarily people would miss, which is about line of sight and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like physical imposition of someone else. And so you're right. It's just like every time, the angles from Joffrey, he's looking up, like a scared child, and Tywin is looking down ferociously.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's just such a nice little detail, man. So I'm so fucking proud of you for seeing that. I don't know why, because that's the kind of thing that ordinarily you don't really see. But yeah, no, it's a great scene. And again, like I've told you this, like my favorite parts of the show beyond two people talking are just anytime Joffrey gets slapped or put into his place or emasculated. And that happens all the time. And it's great. Like, Tywin's not someone we often root for, but in this scene, aren't we all on Team Tywin?
There's that scene I definitely wanted to highlight. And then, of course, poor Theon, this is where he's going to lose his manhood. And, of course, before losing it, he's tempted by the devil himself, right? And he gets himself in this 3-way, and he just crying because I'm crying in the background, too. Like, listen, we know Ramsay's lurking in the background. Like, please let this man just kind of have some dignity left before, these two girls, kind of strip it away from him.
Listen, dude, I think we've been really remiss about this, just how baller fucking Ramsay, and we all hate Ramsay, okay? But just the psychological fucking mind games this guy played with. I'm like, I'm going to get you out of here, guy. Okay. Then you escape. Then you're going to be taken in by people. And then he saves you when he arches those fucking knights, right? He's like, I'm going to save you again. Let's go over here. Let's go meet your sister. And he leads them back to the same fucking torture chamber that he was. Yeah, this guy's playing fourth dimensional chess and torture. And I don't like him, but you got to respect the game a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
He's a sadist, and this is his big pleasure, the hunt. Manipulating his prey. And but actually, I just remember we don't actually find out he's Ramsay until episode 10. We still don't know who this guy is. That's a big thing. We know him now because we've seen him.
Of course, yeah.
But no, I mean, it just sets up like, who the fuck is this guy? And it's like, even though like we hate Theon from season 2 because of what he did, because he's got kind of like a pathetic character in a way.
Of course, you pity him.
We pity him, but at this moment I was like, God, I feel sorry for him. You finally hit it. I was like, man, I don't know if he deserves this.
Yeah, but, absolutely. Yeah, and then of course, if any of you guys want to quickly interject, because I thought this image was cool, we see Jaime saving Brienne Tarth here when he was on his way back to King's Landing. He's like, nope, I want to go back around and I want to save Brienne. And then we see this cool bear fight between him and a bear. And I never realized, oh my God, if you were in a pit against the bear, good fucking luck. So this image doesn't do it justice, but it probably gives you a good example of how to not mess with the bear, because when that bear stands up, you're like, okay, You're way too tall for me, son.
Just watch The Revenant.
Yeah,
you'll find out.
this is that scene for me, by the way, just because we've been alluding to it, because I said this is the season of Jaime. But yeah, this is the big scene. I mean, homie jumps into a fucking pit to save this woman, man. Like, God damn it. Maybe I'm just a sucker, but I was like, all right, I'm team Jaime here. Like, you know, this guy obviously, because it's not just like this stupid bullshit romantic relationship. It is a genuine like respect and admiration that he has for Brienne, even though not a couple episodes earlier, she was just his captor. And I just think it's like such a wonderful, again, seismic shift within one season of a character.
Here, episode 8, The Second Sons. We haven't talked about it a lot, but we see the cool dynamic between Arya and the Hound. We see so many character moments between these two guys so much that I love it. Real quickly, we see another line of the Hound saying, fuck Joffrey, fuck the king. I'm not taking you back to King's Landing. I'm taking you to the phrase, because that's where your brother is going back to, and your mother and all that stuff, and they'll pay me a high reward. We also see now the introductions of the Second Sons here, and then they kind of have that wager here, how they disrespect Dany, but of course, you know, Dario Naharis ends up beheading, his captains, so to speak. Yeah. And then, of course, we see more stuff happening, because we haven't spoken about Bran for a while. Bran now finally wargs not only into Hodor, but into his direwolf himself, because he's so close into seeing Jon, when Jon is now fighting the wildlings and, has that heartbreaking moment between a Ygritte. So I quickly want to mention those things, but more importantly, I want to also capitalize and mention this great scene right here between Joffrey, during the wedding scene of Tyrion and Sansa, and how Christian that Joffrey's like, well, before you have to go. What's the word I'm looking for here? The bedding ceremony between my uncle. I want to torture you a bit, and then we see Tyrion lay the smackdown on Joffrey. One of my favorite scenes in this season. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly play it, and then we'll be right back with our thoughts.
There will be no bedding ceremony.
There will be.
Then you'll be fucking your own bride with a wooden cock.
What did you say?
Dude, I love that scene. And again, Joffrey's not even like Jaime's a sympathetic character at times. You can see the cracks in the just assholishness and you try to go navigate towards those cracks. But Joffrey is just so irredeemable all the time. And again, the scene immediately preceding this is him casually mentioning, I might rape you later today, Sansa. Like really fucked up maniacal shit. Yeah. So a drunk Tyrion who's already unhappy with the being forced to marry Sansa to begin with is not going to fucking mince words at this guy that he loves to fucking smack around anyway. And so
now here we are with episode 9, and that is the reigns of Casimir and Chris Herman. This is now where we did not even care who Roose Bolton and Walder Frey was up until this moment. Yeah. Until we see the horrific stuff happening. We see Edmure Tully here getting excited because we see, oh shit, Walder Frey actually had a hot wife for Robb Stark if he just kept true to his word. So we see a lot of stuff about that. But you know what? Let's go ahead and just dive into it. And that is the Red Wedding itself and one of the most horrific moments happening. So, Chris, I'll start with you first. Sure. Just how the scene played out, or just rewatching it from the beginning. Yeah. How did you feel about rewatching the scene? Because to me, I'm looking at Robb Stark and I'm just like, he was my favorite character. And I think it's safe to say for a lot of people up until this point where you're like, this is the guy who's going to save the realm.
Like him and Jon are the hero characters.
Yeah, him and Jon are the hero characters. Of course, we see mistake after mistake play out. Yeah. And then we see the most shocking event again in TV history. One of the most.
Oh, yeah, anyway. It's up there. It's like an Empire Strikes Back, type of moment. That's what I say. I think this is what truly popularized the show. This is when it became part of the cultural zeitgeist, pop cultural zeitgeist. Exactly. When I first saw this years ago, I felt nauseous. Yeah, I had a physical reaction to it, just how tragic it was. Like the whole thing. Because the thing that's interesting about it starts out really funny. Like Walder Frey, as depraved as he is, that actor, he's such a great job. He's a funny character initially. He's like when he goes back, he's introducing his daughter. He's like he forgets one of their names. He's like whatever.
Yeah,
I
Walder,
don't care.
sure.
Yeah, whatever. Let's keep talking. But it kind of puts you at a false sense of calm the entire time, right? Until you finally get that moment and that reaction when Catelyn sees Roose with the armor on. It's like, oh shit! And then the crossbowmen come out and they're playing this. By the way, so smart that they call this the Reigns of Castamere instead of the Red Wedding. Because people were like, oh fuck, everyone's gonna die at the Red Wedding. Reigns of Castamere, you've heard it in the background, but it's not really been focused. I think the only one time they mentioned, oh yeah, it was like it's a song about the Lannisters, right?
Yeah. So, and there's moments where Cersei has that. I forgot to mention a very important thing where we hear the foreshadowed moments of this now as a fan when you rewatch it, where Marjorie talks about it with Cersei about like, oh, do you know about House Rain and how they came about and why we call it the Reigns of Castamere, so on and so forth. Yeah, so just something I wanted to quickly mention. But Christian, I'll project it back to you now. So how did you feel when you saw this for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, great mind, sir, because I obviously come to The Empire Strikes Back. Maybe that's just because that's how we were raised. This is the bad news bears for us. Like, oh, sometimes life sucks. Like the heroes don't always win sort of deal. But very similar reaction, physically ill. And it wasn't so much from the initial betrayals and stuff like that, but it was really when they stabbed her in the stomach. I mean, like, I wasn't ready for that. And, Game of Thrones is Game of Thrones and it's a big pop culture moment, but this will stand the test of time for holy shit iconic moments in television history. And you know me, I'm really overly critical about Game of Thrones. I'm like, it was going to be a top 5 show and now it fucking fell off the cliff. But in this moment, I mean, like, you cannot go back and watch these first 3 seasons and be like, oh, they're just not. They're perfect. They're perfect seasons of TV, man.
Absolutely.
They subvert every expectation because you're thinking like, oh, well, these are all the people who are driving the narrative of the story. And in one fucking scene, the narrative is completely chopped off at the head.
Michelle Farley, who does a phenomenal job as the mother of Catelyn Stark here, she just gives this horrific cry, man. And I can't help but think, I don't even know when I rewatched this, I'm thinking, okay, if I was a mother or just a parent, what's probably one of the worst things to see ever? And that's to see, you live longer than your children. Yeah. And oh man, and just how the whole scene was played out with Robb Stark. I mean, just like, he's slowly getting up, and that's the thing too. When you that false sense of hope. All the Starks are gone, Christian, but these two, the main ones, I'm like, okay, if I can only have 2, I want these guys to live. And of course, we as the audience, we plead to Walder Frey, just like Catelyn Stark, just let my son go. And Walder, of course, in this harsh reality, that Ramsay said to Theon, if you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention. Of course, Walder Frey's not going to let Robb go, and then we see it happen. Not only is it hard to watch, that scream is just so horrific.
Well, it's purely primal, man. There are no words. That is just like that. You see that's something you would see in nature, right? Like someone just. It's so hard to explain, but it's so like guttural and so primal, and it's not. It's a pure emotional reaction, and you're like, I get it, man. It's one of the highlights of season 3 in terms of acting, and it's already an amazing season for acting. But in that moment, I'm just like, I don't have kids, and I get it. You know what I mean? Like that's such a phenomenal job to get me to understand some like a perspective that I don't have a real life analog to. Yeah.
Just in case somehow we thought Robb was alive. Nope. We see Grey Wind, his head sewn into Robb Stark's body. They're all chanting the King of the North, the King of the North. Very hard to watch. I mean, even when I had to rewatch it last night for this review, I'm just like, oh, this is just really hard to see. But more importantly, Arya was knocked out. And of course, she wakes up just a little bit when she's escaping with the Hound, and of course she sees this, and I can't imagine again. I mean, if it's one thing for a mother to see her children die, I mean, I can't imagine what brothers and sisters must even think about when they see something like that. But to break the ice, we go into Theon, and now losing his manhood again, but Ramsay waving that sausage. We're like, oh, I guess I shouldn't eat the sausage around you. Melisandre was telling everyone earlier, hey, there's power in King's blood. So I'm curious to know what you guys think here with these leeches dying, because Stannis says one is for Robb, usurper Robb, one is for Balon Greyjoy, and the other one's for Joffrey. Now, again, we've seen as the audience members that Robb is just making mistake after mistake. Right. But is there truly power in King's blood that led to the Red Wedding because of what Melisandre did here with these leeches?
I think it's unlike something that's so overt, like birthing a shadow baby or resurrecting from the dead. Maybe this one's a little more subtle, where it's like this is gonna come to pass, but it'll be in a kind of not mundane way, but in a realistic way.
This is just something like the politics also could have dictated this. Like, I don't want to mistake causality because we see that happen, and absolutely, it seems like a cause and effect thing. But I would also say that like Robb made all those mistakes well before she ever got Gendry's blood. Like all the steps and all the breadcrumbs that would kind of give you all the clues were there. So I just think it's one of those things where like, yeah, maybe that has something to do with it for sure. But the other end of that is just the fact that I think like he was doing a shitty job playing the game. He was trying to be honorable in a time where that's not a good thing. Yeah. And it kind of led to his demise.
There's some other things that happen, but the main part, as we see with Danny here, freeing the slaves of Yunkai and Misa. And here we are, whatever. I don't care because, listen, and we're going to see it all throughout the other endings of Game of Thrones. We saw Danny end the season with season 1. With the birth of the dragons.
Good moment. Yeah.
Season 2 was with, Samwell looking at the White Walkers because they're a threat, right?
Very good.
So we see fire and ice, and now we're back to the fire side of it all, right? With Misa, and now Danny's freeing the slaves. Whatever, I don't care.
Can I just say something? Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because it's supposed to be a very uplifting moment from everything we just saw from episode 9. But the fact it's like, it's like, okay, the dragons are flying around. That's great. But it's like Misa. I think of Jar Jar. Every time I hear that, it's like Misa Jar Jar Binks. It's like,
no. Chris, I just want to say thank you very much for joining. Christian, thank you very much for joining. I'm, of course, DJ Miles. And, guys, please let me know in the comments down below, what did you think of Season 3 of Game of Thrones? I agree with Christian. I think Seasons 1 through 3, definitely the strongest, without a doubt. This is where it's at its strongest. And we don't see any cracks, or maybe some, but I don't have a problem with where it goes. And this is some of the best storytelling yet. So we'll see what happens with Game of Thrones Season 4, and I'm curious to know what you guys thought was your favorite moments or least favorite moments. How did you guys react to the Red Wedding? Let me know again down in the comments below, and thank you very much for watching.
Wait, check out Seasons 1 and 2 review as well if you're curious. We did Seasons 1, 2, and we'll be doing all of them. But yes, check those out, and stay tuned for next week. We'll be doing Season 4.